Thanks so much for being here tonight in the fourth installment of GACLP's Career Conversations. And tonight we have the fabulous Noah Schleicher, class of 2015, who's a consultant at Deloitte Consulting, focusing on the future of work. We're super excited to have him here. And just a reminder to all of you guys at home, the focus of our conversations this year is on our younger alums at the start of their career, hoping to give you some interesting insights into the journey from GA through college and the beginning of their big life adventures. So hold on tight. Noah's a lot of fun. He'll probably talk fast. Which we're all excited for. So Heather's going to give an introduction, and then Noah's going to take it away with some slides.
Sounds good. So it's my pleasure to be able to introduce our guest alumnus for the May edition of our Career Conversation webinar. This is Noah Schleicher, GA class of 2015, who joins us from New York City, where he works at Deloitte Consulting. Noah began his GA career in 2007 as a fourth grader. Is that right, Noah?
Fifth grader.
Fifth grader, sorry, I miscalculated. 2007. In both middle and upper school, he played soccer, basketball, and baseball. In the upper school, he was a newspaper editor, a prefect for Washington House, was selected by his classmates to be in the Academy Club, was inducted into the French Honor Society and Cum Laude Society, and was named a McNeil Scholar for his senior year. That's a mouthful, and that's just the beginning. Mr. Schleicher shared with me something one of the faculty wrote about Noah in an award nomination. They said Noah is, quote, a young man with a quirky sense of humor and a real potential for leadership. He challenges himself academically and athletically and inspires his fellow classmates to be better people. Additionally, Mr. Schleicher himself wrote about Noah that what strikes his teachers most, myself included, that's Mr. Schleicher, are his natural curiosity and his genuine passion for learning. He is a classroom leader by sheer force of interest, and this force compels his teachers and classmates onward and upward. Not only is he a two-sport varsity athlete and a scholar who simultaneously balances an impressive array of honors and AP classes, but he actually revels in both these worlds. He enjoys them. Obviously something Mr. Schleicher values, as we all do. After GA, Noah attended Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, where he majored in economics and minored in corporate strategy and French. While at Vanderbilt, he was a president of his fraternity, involved in the intra-fraternity council, and wrote for the university's satirical newspaper. After his sophomore year, he was involved in an internship through the university's Owen School of Business, where he executed product innovation and led a team on advertising and marketing strategies. These days, Noah is a consultant at Deloitte Consulting, where he applies his background in corporate strategy and passion for working with people to helping organizations think through their issues related to the future of work, which is a concept he'll talk more about this evening. So please join me in welcoming Noah. Thanks for being here, Noah.
Thank you both so much for that incredibly kind introduction. You stole a lot of my lines, so I'm going to need to rethink my script as we go. Hi everyone, my name is Noah Schleicher. As Heather and Gabby mentioned, I'm GA class of 15 and living in New York City now. Got a bunch of kind of quick stats and facts about myself. I'll go through them, provide a little quick background about me, and then kind of go through my journey starting at GA, going to Vanderbilt, and now finally where I'm at Deloitte. So as Heather and Gabby mentioned, class of 2015, I went to Vanderbilt, majored in economics, minor in corporate strategy and French. Some interests about me: I still love playing sports, still playing soccer, basketball, softball when I can. I'm involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York, collecting soccer jerseys and Converse Chuck Taylors. So if you have any leads on any good ones, please feel free to send them my way. Love HBO TV shows. I play guitar very poorly, a pandemic hobby that I picked back up after playing when I was younger, and love reading some books. And I've got some quick pictures of myself over here. So got me playing soccer down at Vanderbilt in the top, played on the club team there. A picture from my senior GAPC Day rally with Mr. Mattern on the left. who I don't believe is at GA anymore, but one of the best history teachers in the school. On the right there, a family trip with my brother to Alaska, up on a glacier there. Very cool. Love traveling. Haven't done much of it over the past few years, like I'm sure most of us haven't, but would love to get back to that soon. And then on the bottom, that was my junior year, GAPC Day. The soccer team dressed up as bowlers and all the new players dressed up as bowling pins. So I got the honor of dressing up as a bowling pin. So that's a little bit about me. I will kind of talk through my journey at GA, how I ended up at Vanderbilt, you know, my experiences there, what I got involved with in a little bit more detail, and then kind of go through with some following slides about what I do now, and you know what I've learned along the way has led me there, and how I'm bringing it through to today. So at GA, I think like many of us we're kind of focused on where we want to go to college, you know, what we need to do to get there. So I was kind of mulling about. I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted heading into 11th grade, where I actually got the honor of becoming an advisee of Gabby. So that really kind of changed my perspective. Gabby, I don't know if you remember a conversation you and I had originally about I telling you where I wanted to go to school. And it was a kick in the butt, for lack of a better term, of you basically telling me that I couldn't get into where I wanted to go with how I was performing academically in my extracurriculars. So that was a wake-up call that I needed to kind of push myself academically and extracurriculars to get where I wanted to go. So thank you for that, number one. But that really caused me to kind of take a step back and focus on like really where I wanted to be, and you know where I wanted to get to. And I knew that I wanted to go to Vanderbilt from the first day that I kind of stepped on campus. You know, great academic school, down south, great weather, great city in Nashville, and you know a lot of good sports programs to kind of root on. So my later years at GA, a lot of what I was focused on was like, how do I align myself to like get to Vanderbilt, you know, have that one kind of driving goal behind my classwork, you know, how I actually did in those classes, the stuff I involved in myself in extracurriculars, just kind of building that story. So did end up at Vanderbilt. So once I got down there, again, up until that point, a lot of what I'd been focused on was just how to get there. And I hadn't really reflected on like, well, what does that mean for what I want to do, which I think is fine. When you're in high school, you can kind of know you want to get to a certain place and then figure out what you want to do there afterwards. There's no reason to be thinking about what you want to be doing as a career. I mean, if you do, then that's great, but you shouldn't feel pressure to know what you want to do with your life as a junior or senior in college or high school. So I really needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I started at Vanderbilt. And I love the English classes at GA. I love the history classes, the whole Harkness table, small classes. So I started taking a lot of English classes my first few semesters. And I remember a funny conversation I had with my mom coming home one break. And my older brother, who's GA class of 2013, he's an amazing actor, was always involved in Belfry and continued that throughout his time in college. And I remember I was talking with my mom and she was like, all right, Noah, you need to take an economics class if Eli, my older brother, is going to be, studying theater his whole life. I need one of you to understand how money works. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll take one econ class. And that next semester, I ended up just really falling in love with it. I wasn't so much as interested in the hard data and numbers. I was joking with Gabby before. I'm not really a huge math guy. So she was surprised that I chose economics as my major, but, went along with it. I really loved what it says about human behavior. Economics at the end of the day talks about human, data, allocation of resources, of money, where jobs are, things like that. And, you can really tell a lot about how people act and behave and what they're thinking and how they're feeling based on how the academic data or, the economic data bears that out. you look at things today like people quitting their jobs, inflation rates, things like that. It's what people are spending money on, how they're feeling about their current situation. So I really just fell in love with that aspect of it. And I kind of continued on, took in more and more economics classes and decided to major in that. I also knew I wanted to get a solid business background, again, kind of shaping what I was thinking I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to be involved in business, like generic quotes, business somehow. Corporate strategy just seemed like a good foundation to have, basic accounting classes, marketing, things like that, that just kind of allowed me to talk in a very general sense about business. And French, I've taken French since it was first offered to us in middle school. So I continued that. I love French and the French language. So that was just kind of a fun thing that I was really passionate about. So I took those classes, again, continued on with the economics. And then once I decided on that, it was kind of thinking through what I wanted to do as my job. And again, so after my freshman year, I had been a camp counselor after my junior year of high school, my senior year of high school, and after my freshman year of college. So I really had no marketable skills going into my sophomore year, where people in college really start thinking about, all right, what jobs do I want to get to help me get more jobs, another internship maybe after my junior year of college, and then help me get a job full time, to kind of start to build out your professional resume more than just like classes and things like being a camp counselor. So after sophomore year, I knew that I needed to do something, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So at the business school at Vanderbilt, they offered a 1-month consulting boot camp, which is basically you go and it's pretty intense. It's a 1 month, like 12 hours a day, to really figure out if you like it or not. And you're doing consulting projects. And consulting is basically when a company brings in a professional services firm like Deloitte. There's a number of them. Some of the big ones are McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group, Accenture, all quote unquote professional services firms. They bring a company like that in to help them with a problem they either don't have the time for, or the resources, or just the know-how within their organization to do. So they need to bring in someone from outside of their organization to kind of help run it. So the things that I got exposed to after my sophomore year at that business school program, were things like marketing new products, entering new markets, evaluating companies, et cetera, things like that. And I really just fell in, I really enjoyed that type of work. You're always working in teams, and I thought it was great to just be able to work with people, apply some of my economics background, apply some of my corporate strategy background. And so coming out of that summer, I knew that I kind of wanted to focus in on consulting as a profession. So then I started looking around, started interviewing for different positions within consulting for an internship the following summer. I interviewed for Deloitte within their human capital function. And I'll actually click on here a little bit. So Deloitte has a number of different kind of industries and business issues that they focus on for their consulting services. So you can see here, a bunch of different industries and business issues. So strategy focus, again, customer, corporate, workforce, M&A. That's some of the stuff I was talking about earlier about, valuing companies, marketing a new product, potentially entering a new market for a product, and operations focus as well. That's much more logistics, very technical, not really where I wanted to focus. So I highlighted here, I really honed in on the workforce, mainly just because I felt that I loved working with people, and, being able to offer consulting services for workforce issues. People spend so much of their lives at work, and above all else, that's kind of what you interact with most. you know, maybe outside of your family and some very close friends, but the people you work with and the work you're doing is how, after you graduate college, how you spend the bulk of your time. So if I could help someone or a group of people or a whole company, you know, improve how they work, improve their experiences with their work, their fellow, you know, colleagues, then that would be a worthwhile endeavor for me. So I did that, and I got the internship with Deloitte after my junior year, had a great summer, and then got a return offer after my junior year to come back full time, which is pretty typical these days of certainly consulting and with the big banks, internships that they have. It's probably becoming more popular in other industries as well, and more jobs, but definitely with those two. So that was back in summer of 2019. I started at Deloitte, and I've been there ever since. And as Gabby and Heather mentioned in the intro, I've largely been focused on the future of work. And so that's basically founded on 3 principles. So you can think about the work in the workforce, and the workplace. So the work is thinking through, all right, what do you actually do when you wake up and you go to your office, or you open up your laptop, or you hop on the phone, or, you know, go to a factory and go on the supply line. If you're you know, a driver, if you go that, you know, whatever it is, like, what do you do when you start your day, and what it is that you do throughout the day? That's the work that you do. The workforce, of course, you know, leaders are thinking about where to find the talent that they need to get to fill these things. If a manager or, you know, a CEO is saying, I have this company, I need people to do this, and this job, where do we find them? You know, so it's accessing talent, figuring out what the right workforce mix is. And also on the flip side, what does the workforce want? What is it like working for this company? You know, things that are so hot right now in terms of well-being, work-life balance, you know, what does that look like for your workforce to make this the best experience for them possible? And then finally, the workplace. You know, the role of the workplace has certainly changed over the last 2.5 years. You know, you look at it, March 1st, 2020 in the United States. You know, I live in New York. The subways are packed. Everybody was in the office 5 days a week. You know, no one was really questioning anything. You fast forward 2 years, you see companies are trying to bring their workforce back into the office, if that's a choice that they've made. Others are trying to completely redesign the workplace to be a, you know, space for collaboration, for key meetings, for teams to come together and, you know, get that social interaction. So helping companies think through, you know, what does that look like? What does the role of the workplace mean for your organization? And, you know, how can we kind of help you construct a workplace strategy to help meet the needs of your organization? So just talk for a while. That's kind of the end of my spiel.
Noah, I'm going to jump on and ask you a couple questions. I'm going to start the camera. Maybe can you stop sharing? Maybe.
Yeah.
Will work. There we go. We're back on. That was super interesting. First of all, I love your enthusiasm. I always have. And I totally remember that conversation that we had. We were sitting on the top of the stairs in the back stairwell of the art department. I remember like it was yesterday, in part because I just was talking to you if you were like my son, but I thought maybe you would listen to me more because I was your advisor. You know, no one listens to their parents in high school. And I just felt like you needed to buckle down for the ride. And I'm glad that, you know, it
was
resonated.
Exactly the kick in the pants that I needed.
Well, I never shy away from the tough conversations, but I'm so interested in the fact that, well, first of all, the serendipity that you happen to be focusing on the future of work at a time when probably more so now than in the last 30 years has there been disruption to work generally. And so,
Yeah.
we're still not out of COVID yet. I remember, when Claudia was really little, the pediatrician always said, it takes about 3 weeks till they form a new habit. And I've been thinking about that a lot in this COVID set of years, because everybody's really used to having a less chaotic life. I think people are working as hard as ever, especially the knowledge economy, right? Because,
Yeah.
they're in a privileged position to be able to choose where they're going to put their laptop, right? So within a certain kind of work, there's, the future seems different or potentially different than other kinds, but the habits have really stuck. These habits of having some balance, these habits of less commutes. No one misses the 14th Street train, subway stops, getting anywhere you right, like at 9 o'clock, right? I'm wondering if you have any predictions about the next 5 years out, the next 10 years out. I say this because Forbes is coming out with some pretty bold prediction numbers about what the knowledge economy is going to look like. So can you talk a little bit? I mean, I know you can't give away the trade secrets, and I know you sign NDAs and all of that, but based on the work that you've been doing in this space, I'm super interested in your predictions around white collar work in the next 10 years and what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are just kind of expecting more out of their workers, out of their employers now than ever before. So many issues have come to the fore that previously had been, oh, this is an HR issue. Oh, this is, figure this out on your team, that are now top of mind CEO issues, things like well-being, work-life balance, mental health, company culture. There's so many important things that CEOs see as pretty foundational to how their organizations run, that they realize are so important for them to weigh in on and really drive towards, that maybe weren't so. And I think it's only going to accelerate from here. It's interesting right now because we're kind of in that in between where some companies are back, some companies are remote forever, some companies are trying to figure out what that means. But I think something that we're going to see, accelerate over the next 5 years is just companies willing to be agile and adaptable and flexible in their approach. I think you're seeing so many, Fortune 500 companies where previously to make a decision with this scale, however many hundreds of thousands of employees they have, would say, we need data, we need proof points, we need case studies, we need this, we're going to bring in 6 consulting firms to get a different opinion from each of them. So, but I think you're seeing more so now than ever before, folks are saying, we're okay trying this. We're going to try something for 3 months, 6 months, test it out, see how it goes, and adjust and figure it out. Is this what our workforce wants? Is this not what we want? And I think people are more willing to go along with that. They understand that, everything now is a fluid situation. There's no quote unquote stability. Things are just changing all the time. And, learning to operate in that environment is so critical for companies these days to be successful and, to get the talent that they want to do the things that they want to do.
So do you think it's really, I mean, you said it right in the end, it's in order to attract and maintain the really talented people, they have to have a different approach to work culture in the first place. But I'm wondering what you've been hearing from, upper level executives about how they're trying to maintain culture and build synergies in the remote workspace, because we know how that works when we're all face to face, right? And I'm curious.
Yeah. I'm wondering if are you on that same train? Do you do any studies on the economics of people being separated, right? Versus the productivity? Is there a change to productivity and thus the company's bottom line if people are separated as opposed to in the same space?
Yeah, well, productivity is an interesting one because I think it's something that everybody wants to know, but it's easy to measure productivity if you're in a factory, and you can easily say, you know, at the end of a shift, you did put X number of widgets into a hole, and that's, you know, your base output. But for knowledge workers, it's much more difficult. So it's not as much, I think what we're seeing in the market is it's not as much about measuring productivity. You know, there's a million different ways to measure productivity. Talking about, you know, hours worked, is it more hours worked more productive? No, it's not. Like, I don't think you can say it is. Is it the number of emails you send? Is it the number, you know, how do you measure what somebody is doing in a legal department versus a marketing department? How do you say one is productive and one isn't? So it's, the narrative on productive is more about, you know, and again, playing into that well-being. If you're operating in a remote environment, is the work getting done? Yes, or it's yes or no. If it is, then it doesn't really matter, you know, how often that their quote unquote like butts are in the seats for. You know, if the work's getting done and someone needs to pop out for 15 minutes to go get their kid from the bus station or go take their dog for a walk, then that shouldn't really matter, as long as you're getting the work done. So it's not as much about maintaining, or I guess it's about maintaining productivity, in the sense that at the end of the day, is the work getting done? You know, the journey you get, whatever that looks like within your day to get where you need to be with the proper quality on time, then that's all that really matters. And Gabby, to your point about culture, I think, you know, I work with a lot of financial services clients, and something that you hear from them specifically in the news, you know, Jamie Dimon, James Gordon, like the big wigs of the big banks, we need to be in person. That's how we build culture. That's an apprenticeship. You know, I don't think that's true. I think like you can definitely see how it's a lot easier to build a culture, build an apprenticeship model, you know, in person. It's so nice. And I'm not saying that being in person is bad. I love being in person, but you just need to be a little bit more intentional about those relationships that you have. You don't have the kind of serendipitous run-ins at the office or you know, in the hall that you might want. But if you are, you know, you can make up with that with being a little bit more intentional, and, you know, improving communication amongst the teams. It puts a lot of onus on the leaders to make sure that they're checking in with their people. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of the stuff about burnout and people are just overworked, because they do have this new responsibility that would otherwise be just kind of in the flow of their workday, that they have to just be much more intentional about. And it's a new expectation, and leading in a virtual environment is so, it's a different skill set than, you know, just managing in person.
Oh, I love that you pointed out that leading in a virtual environment is different than managing in person. You know, I built the online school for the School of Visual Arts when we had to pivot to online teaching in 2020-21. And, you know, I had to really rethink how I did everything, because I was acutely aware of a different energy and a different pace and a different rhythm that had to happen online for engagement. But what I think is surprising about what you're saying is that there's leadership burnout, because now they have to be explicit about building culture. That is really telling to me that when I think of leadership, right, this isn't going to surprise you. I think of values-based leadership, service-based leadership, where you don't just get the corner office and your underlings have to take it on the chin for you, right? Yeah. The fact that you're getting burnout there because all of a sudden they're actually really responsible for the strategy and tactics around building culture for the first time, so that they can't quite take credit for what is happening serendipitously. I think that's really actually pretty interesting. And I think over time, you're going to get different executives who want those corner offices, because like you said, it's a different game that they're preparing for. I also think a little something to do with some generation. I might be wrong about this, but I'm guessing most of your, you know, most of the corner offices in finance and even in consulting, I would say, you know, they've got to be over 50 for the most part. I think that's a radically different paradigm than the millennials that are coming up, who have a different way of working, and even a different relationship to how you're social, even when you're being social digitally. So
Yeah.
be curious to see how that plays out. I'm not surprised that you're saying it's taking a different skill set. Can you talk a little bit more about like what their burnout looks like? Is that part of the whole Great Resignation? Is that what you're seeing?
I think the Great Resignation is more so about just people reevaluating, like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to do it, in finance and those types of jobs? Like, is 80 hours a week and however many hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, like, is that how I want to live my life? And that's more so people just kind of recalibrating their values and what's important to them. And that's why people are, moving cities and changing jobs. And, we had this big hit pause and worry however many months and years. And then people said, I've had time to think about it. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something that makes me happier and is more aligned with my personal interests, or allows me to spend more time with my family. Some people love the fact that they got to spend every day with their kids, and they realized that working a job where they were traveling every week, or working nights and weekends, wasn't giving them that time, and so they had to recalibrate that. So
is that
yeah,
affecting the needs of corporate structures? Like, I mean, I'm curious, are corporate leaders, organization leaders looking at their structure and trying to like kind of redesign what their hierarchies look like?
It yes and no. I think people are rethinking how teams work and how they're structured from that end, but I wouldn't say there's like a brain drain per se. These large employers, like we lost at Deloitte, we lost however many people going to other jobs. Whatever we lost, I think we've 3 or 4x brought in more people.
Wow.
So it's the Great Resignation is working both ways. For every one person that's coming in, another person or another company is leaving to come to you. So it's not as much the structures are changing. I think it's more just a values realignment of people considering what they want from their professional careers and what is worth it to them for their jobs.
That sounds like it's good news for younger kids going into consulting space, right? If there's more opportunity.
I mean, over the last however many months, in probably a year, basically like post vaccinations, like widespread distribution, the job market has never been hotter. I mean, December, January, February, I think there was like 13 million people that quit their jobs. And if you can go on LinkedIn or just type in job postings on Google, it's like any hundreds of options to choose from. There's more out there than one person can really handle.
And I would just pause real quick, Gab, to just invite those that are on the call to submit their questions in the Q&A if we're not hitting on topics you're interested in.
Yeah, please do, and I'll know when a new question comes in, and I can throw that softball at Noah now that we know he's still playing softball in New York. I was going to ask you, so what would your advice be? I know Vanderbilt, like 50, 75 other schools around the country have like pathways for internships that move into finance, consulting, banking, and other kinds of related fields. Say you're not part of that in a school that's part of that system, as it were. What would you recommend to somebody like yourself, who's really smart with wide-ranging interests in humanities, who is great working on teams and collaborating, and is a great problem solver, and the consulting space, which we should note to all the kids listening at home, pays very well straight out of the gate, much higher, like finance, than lots of other entry-level positions. You work for it, right? You're putting in 70-hour weeks. It's not like it's a cakewalk, but it's very lucrative. And in the absence of like a professional specialty that you've prepared for, it's a really good way to get a lens on lots of different kinds of businesses and how they work. Like when you're brought in on a scope of work for lots of different kinds of companies, you get a sense of the space of that work. So what would be some of your advice for kids who don't necessarily have an immediate pathway to those recruitments?
Yeah. So I would say twofold. You can kind of use it in your favor, as much as it might be an obvious, like, you feel like you're at a disadvantage. At a school like Vanderbilt, like you mentioned, there's a very kind of clear pathway. You know, there's great relationships with a lot of the big firms that come in on campus, do informational sessions, do coffee, whatever, like a million different things to try and get Vanderbilt students. At the Deloitte information session, there could be 300 undergraduate students there. And it's like, how do you stand out? You're in, how do I, Noah Schleicher, Vanderbilt students stick out from a stack of 299 other Vanderbilt resumes that come across the recruiter's, desk. Like, so I would say, a kind of unfortunate truth, however you want to look at it, of, once you enter the professional world, it's a lot of it is just kind of legwork and, talking to the right people and putting yourself out there, and just networking. Like, if you want that, find someone in your alumni network at your school or GA that works with these companies. That's as simple as looking on LinkedIn. And I'm sure that they would be more than happy to talk to you. You just kind of have to put yourself out there, message people, ask for an in, tell them you're interested, tell them why you're interested. People are much more willing. I've had people from GA reach out to me, I want to get into consulting. Here's what's interested about me. And the fact that they're just demonstrating that interest and, reaching out, it shows that they actually care. And it's like, all right, I'll put in the legwork on my end to find who the right recruiter to connect you in with is. And, there's no guarantee that it moves along from them, but there's no way to even get the possibility without kind of putting that legwork in up front. So it is, I don't want to call it a game, but you have to just kind of hit the road and, send emails and try and reach out and talk to people.
And, I know that there's this sort of junior year internship where they test drive you as a fit for their company, and then you get a return offer. If you miss that junior internship window, is there another window straight out of senior year where you can apply directly for the same work? Or if you miss that junior thing, are you really missing it until you go to business school or something?
I don't think that, definitely not until business school. I would say in large part, the big companies that are hiring for the junior year internship have the intention of bringing everyone back for their senior year, after their senior year, to start full time, and that be their starting class. So it's, there's some people might turn it down, some people might not work out, and there might be additional slots that open up. They might say, we brought in 15, junior year, they all worked out, we want to add 2 or 3 more. So it's not, there's no chance after your senior year. I would say it's much smaller. Again, this is just for like the big firms that have this, like, they're running 20-person internships classes in their 30 offices across the country, and there's 6 different divisions. So it's like, it ends up being a lot of kids, and these huge companies. So this is specifically my experience and for them, but I would say it's a smaller pool after senior year. But then you could also come in, as an experienced hire. Like, I've had, I know people that have moved into Deloitte after 6 months or a year at another company. I know people that started at a bank after working at Deloitte for 2 years. So there are multiple pathways to get there.
Can we go back into the kind of work you do? Because I have a question regarding whether or not you are, and you don't have to tell me the name of the company because I know you can't really talk about things, but I'm really curious, given that probably 60% of the knowledge economy will operate in a hybrid, sometimes in the office, sometimes at home kind of workspace in forever. Like they're predicting that's a new condition, a relatively permanent new condition. Are you working with any companies that are developing better tools for collaborating across networks in the remote workspace. I'm so curious about what's happening there. Can you share anything?
When you say collaboration, do you mean like more than just like Zoom and Teams and
Yes.
that sort of stuff?
Exactly. Some turnkey solution. Like if you took Miro board, do you know what Miro is?
Yeah.
So if you took Slack and Miro and Zoom and Google Doc, like I'm imagining all the things, all the tabs that I have open on my window, on my desktop every day when I'm working. Every day I'm like, someone has to be thinking about tying a ribbon around all of this, putting all of this functionality in a place. So can you tell us anything about, you're smiling and laughing, like tell us all the trade.
You've got the streaming services, you want cable. I get it. From where I sit, I'm not really involved in those conversations. If there are, I think it makes a lot of sense. But the funny thing is like these companies that we're working with, they all have made these massive investments in the technologies that they have. So, the client I'm on right now is a Teams client. Like they use Teams, video Teams, whiteboarding Teams, everything. My last client was WebEx. Everything is in WebEx. Right. We use Zoom at Deloitte. Like it's just, everyone's kind of got a different thing. And, you said I paid these licensing fees, it's like, it's working. But I will say there's a lot of cool innovation in terms of like workplace technologies. Even simple things is like, we have cameras in our office where you can go into a room and the camera keys in on people that are speaking. So if we're in a Zoom call and imagine I'm in a meeting room and there's 3 other people in there, we'll join from a Zoom, and then as I'm speaking, it'll zoom in on my face. As another person at the table is speaking, it'll zoom in on their face. So it feels a little bit more like a personal conversation. So I don't know if there's something, and another example, we use an AI-backed survey tool that we've begun using a lot in the last few months, where it's incredibly powerful. And you run these sessions where normally if you want to have a focus group, in the old days, you would have, send out like a Survey Monkey or a Google Forms, and it's like, this is super boring. Or you get into a focus group with 10 people and it's like, you have this, but your company has 50,000 employees. Is 10 people really representative of it? We're running these, we're calling them, they're called listening sessions now, where you do free form and, like single select responses. And on the free form responses, they spit them back at the respondents and say, do you agree or disagree with this? And every response gets an agree score. And you have a whole host of demographic data, tenure, function, geography, that we have people put in at the beginning. And you can say, oh, it looks like, people from this geography agreed with this score the most. And, oh, it looks like, most people, you can kind of see the power of like up to, thousands of people that you can get to like that. It's, it takes an hour online, and you can cut it in all these different ways. So I don't know if there's one thing that's going to bundle everything together, but I think there's a lot of incremental technologies that you're starting to see come out that are really cool and kind of changing how, just improving on things that are pain points in the virtual world.
Sounds like a good design thinking exercise for current students, right, Gab?
Yeah, it would be. But somebody is actually sitting there and figuring out the need and then iterating different to it, right? So I have to ask an AI question because you brought it up, and this might be the last question we have time for. It's been 20 years now, at least, since the manufacturing centers have kind of migrated out of our 50 states and into other places. And, it was always a pretty safe bet, white collar work, generally speaking, but AI is really getting pretty good at a lot of like the knowledge tasks. I'm curious if at Deloitte, you guys spend much time looking at the shifting importance of certain kinds of jobs, or the decreasing importance of certain kind of jobs because of AI. Are you guys working on predictions in in that space of workforce predictions?
Yeah, we are. I'm trying to pull up here because we talked about our client. I'm on a consumer products client right now, and they're very interested in like, what does our factory workforce look like down the road? So the funny thing about that is like, there is with good reason, people hear technology, they hear things like artificial intelligence, and automatically they just go to, all right, I'm losing my job. Like eventually it'll get to the point where they're doing what I'm doing, and that's just kind of the way it is. But really, we're seeing more of like the opportunity to augment what humans do rather than fully replace. The reason I'm trying to find, there's some stat that's like there's going to be something like 130 million jobs created by 2030 just based on new technologies coming out and new opportunities for humans. Thinking through, if you get technology, and I know you asked about AI, but now I'm just talking about technology more broadly. But if you get an AI algorithm to automate kind of the like repeatable tasks that you do, it frees you up for more human thinking. There's things that hopefully machines don't figure out how to do that humans do. Curiosity, problem solving, these like innately human skills that you can apply to your job, and kind of implementing these technologies that maybe do away with some of the repeatable tasks, some of the like things that people see as annoyances in their daily jobs can really augment what people do and help them redefine their jobs and how they interact with their work.
I love that answer, that it augments what we already do well. You talked about curiosity and creative problem solving. Are you seeing those as the two chief distinguishers of skill sets that you should be building to ensure that you get to the top of the pile on the hires?
Curiosity, definitely. Adaptability, agility. To your point, in this environment, everything is always changing. If you have a demonstrated ability to be able to react and play a number of different hats, and rewind to March 13th or 14th, what you were doing on that day versus what you were doing 5 days before could have been dramatically different. And I think a big narrative that we're pushing in the market is the shift from jobs to skills. So organizations need skill sets. They don't necessarily need a job where you're tied to one certain thing. They need people with different skills that can do different things, they can flex into different parts of the organization as needed. And again, that's just going back to what we were talking about, how organizations are so focused on being adaptable and being flexible and being able to respond to whatever comes with them.
Noah, you're a star, my friend. You could tell you think and talk for a living. That's awesome. We're just about at our hour, and there's two quick questions here. One is, what classes do you contribute to your passion for economics?
Oof. It sounds dumb, but I really like the just intro to my macroeconomics class that I took first. That was like kind of introduced me to the world. But I did take a economics of sports class in college that I think opened my eyes to the fact that the things that I was learning in my like theory classes really could be applied to the world and the things that I was very passionate about, and that kind of got my brain moving a little bit. And then I took a class my senior year called Seminar on Macroeconomics, which as a senior, if you can take a seminar class, like that's always good, because we got in there and my professor basically sat down and said, all right, what's going on today in the world of economics? And then we just talked for 45 minutes and he said, all right, have a good day. I'll see you on Wednesday. So that was a great class, but also that really helped me to like think through. It's like, all right, I'm reading this in the newspaper. What does that mean? What does that mean for the US? What does that mean for the global economy? What does that mean for other countries? And so that just kind of got me thinking about how the things that I'm seeing and what I'm reading kind of affects the world around me. and that was a very fun semester class for me.
I would also add, Noah, that that question was from Stephen, who's an 8th grader, who's looking at, you know, upper school
Nice.
coming up. You didn't have economics classes at GA, right?
No, I think it was only, I think Mr. Garvin taught an elective,
Right.
A mini semester,
Yeah.
but there was no econ classes. I would definitely take an econ class if there was available at GA.
Well, I would say there is one now with from our new assistant head of school, Nadine McVicker. So Stephen, that's something you can look to once you're in upper school.
Yeah, very cool.
We'll have to connect you with her, Noah. I feel like you guys would see eye to eye.
Noah, we
That's
asked
awesome.
of all of our guests before we sign off, if we have some students who see this link at a future time and have some questions and might want to reach out to you, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we will, for everybody at home, in the next couple of days, when Ms. Durkin gets the link ready, she'll send it off to me and I'll send it out to all of you, and on it we'll have the contact information for Noah. Noah, thanks so much. It was just so great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I know, it feels like I've been seeing you every day since 20. Thanks for being so passionate and generous tonight, and you could really tell that you love your work. It's evident in everything you've said and in the enthusiasm that you've conveyed. So thanks so much. And next month, everyone, I think just in a couple of weeks, for those of you still listening, we have Michael Michelle Longino. Just check out Ralph Lauren's new line of clothing for women, and you'll see her all over it.